The year is 1350, and winter has gripped the land with an unrelenting hand. Snow seeps through the gaps in your roof, settling on the uneven mud floor of your home, while icy wind whistles through every crack in the walls. Your house is little more than a crude shelter, walls patched together with clay, straw, and animal waste, offering minimal protection from the freezing cold. Outside, the fields are buried under thick layers of frost, and the trees stand bare, stripped of all life. Inside, the smell of livestock, cows, pigs, and chickens mingles with smoke from the hearth, filling the small space as you huddle with your family, desperate to conserve every ounce of warmth. Each day is a battle to survive, yet despite every effort, mortality is never far away. Records show that for every 10 villagers, one will not make it through the winter. Could you endure weeks of freezing nights, meager meals, and relentless disease to see the spring? Could you survive a winter so merciless it became a natural arbiter of life and death? The village itself is small, tightly clustered against the merciless cold, each hut leaning close to the next as if for support. Paths between them are frozen mud, treacherous with ice, forcing villagers to tread carefully with every step. Smoke from chimneys curls upward in thin gray wisps, only to be swallowed by the overcast winter sky. The landscape beyond is a stark sea of white. Fields and pastures lie buried under layers of snow, trees stripped bare by frost, and rivers sluggish and iced over. Life here revolves around survival, and every action carries weight. Livestock is brought inside during the long nights, their warmth shared with humans in an uneasy intimacy, a measure of life preserved through proximity. Families huddled together in the tiny huts, children pressed against parents for warmth, blankets patched from scraps of fabric barely protecting them from the cold that seeps through the walls. Food is scarce, and the smell of cooking gray slop, boiled grains mixed with whatever roots or scraps remain, permeates every home. Villagers ration carefully, knowing a misstep could mean frostbite, hunger, or even death. And yet life continues. Each day is a cycle of gathering fuel, tending animals, maintaining the fragile hearth fire, and hoping the frost will not take its toll. Even in this frozen world, the social hierarchy dictates behavior. Laws protect the Lord's resources, punish theft severely, and ensure that even the smallest survival act must obey feudal rule. The winter is more than cold. It is a force that shapes every moment of life, determining who survives and who succumbs. For a medieval family, fire is not luxury. It is the thin line between life and death. Each household requires nearly 45 kilograms of firewood every single day just to keep the hearth burning long enough to stave off frostbite and hypothermia. Yet gathering this firewood is fraught with danger. Most forests belong to the local lord, and cutting even fallen branches without permission is considered theft, punishable by brutal penalties, including the loss of hands or public shaming. Villagers live in a constant tension between necessity and law. They need warmth to survive, yet the very act of gathering what could save them might seal their fate. Families devise desperate strategies to stretch their limited fuel. They save embers from one night to the next, adding twigs and scraps slowly to coax a fire to life. Smoke fills their homes, stinging eyes and lungs, but the bitter cold leaves no choice. Neighbors share what little wood they have, creating fragile alliances based on survival, or sometimes exchanging grain for firewood in quiet barter. Night after night, the family huddles together around the flickering flame, bodies pressed close for warmth, listening to the wind howl outside, knowing that a single mismanaged spark could leave them shivering through the night. The struggle is relentless. Outside, frost creeps along the windows and through gaps in the walls, settling on the floors and chilling anyone who dares move. The constant need for fire defines daily life: where to collect wood, how to store it, and how to keep it from freezing wet or damp. Villagers must carefully ration each bundle, balancing warmth, cooking, and the occasional heat for livestock. Every decision carries weight. A miscalculation could mean frostbite, a sick child, or worse, the death of a family member. Fire is life itself, a daily battle fought with smoke, sweat, and ingenuity against a winter that refuses to relent. Food in a medieval winter is a constant worry, a daily struggle between meager sustenance and starvation. Villagers survive primarily on a gray, monotonous gruel, a mixture of boiled grains, water, and whatever scraps of vegetables or roots they can scavenge or preserve from the summer harvest. Meat is a rare luxury, reserved for those who can afford it or for special occasions, while milk and cheese are often rationed carefully to last through the cold months. Families eat small portions, knowing that overindulgence today could mean going hungry tomorrow. Children are the most vulnerable. Contemporary records reveal that roughly 1 in 5 children will not survive until spring. Malnourishment weakens their bodies, making them easy prey to disease. Parents watch helplessly as their children shrink under the weight of hunger, their bones brittle, their growth stunted, and their energy sapped. For adults, the constant lack of nutrition leaves them weak, unable to carry firewood, hunt, or tend livestock effectively. Even the strongest are at risk of succumbing to frostbite or infection because their bodies are too undernourished to fight. During the harshest winters, desperation leads to extraordinary measures. Villagers stretch every morsel, fermenting and storing grains for months, foraging for frozen roots beneath the snow, or trading valuables for small amounts of food. The eternal pot simmers constantly, a gray slot passed from one member of the household to the next. Its smell dominates the home, its bland taste a reminder of survival over pleasure. In some extreme cases during famine years, contemporary chronicles record horrifying acts of cannibalism, as the dead or dying were consumed in attempts to sustain the living. Even with careful rationing, food scarcity governs every decision, shaping life and death in the winter. Meals are no longer a comfort, but a measure of endurance. Each day, villagers calculate how long their stores will last, often skipping meals themselves to preserve food for children. Hunger gnaws at every household, a constant invisible companion through long nights, driving fear, ingenuity, and sometimes desperation. In a world without refrigeration or trade networks, the cold and scarcity together become a merciless force that few could endure without suffering profound hardship.
The homes of medieval villagers offer little comfort against the brutal winter. Walls made of mud and animal waste provide minimal insulation, and roofs patched with straw and clay are often riddled with holes that allow snow and icy rain to fall inside. Even the smallest gust of wind seeps through every crack, chilling the air and forcing families to bundle together for warmth. The floors, made of hardened earth, are cold enough to bite at bare feet, and the smoke from the hearth meant to provide warmth only partially offsets the freezing air. Families often rely on livestock to survive the cold. Cows, pigs, and chickens are herded indoors at night, their bodies pressed against humans in a shared struggle to conserve heat. While this provides some relief, it also introduces new dangers. The stench, dirt, and germs from animals create a constant health hazard, and the close quarters make sleep uncomfortable. Children huddle with parents, wrapping themselves in whatever scraps of fabric are available, their small bodies shivering despite all precautions. Health risks multiply as frostbite and hypothermia lurk at every corner. Fingers, toes, and noses are particularly vulnerable, and once frostbite sets in, amputation may be the only option to survive. Illness spreads easily in these cramped, damp environments. Respiratory infections thrive, and any minor injury can quickly turn deadly in weakened bodies. The winter transforms the home from a place of shelter into a precarious balance, a space that protects against the cold, yet simultaneously threatens life through disease and exposure. The architecture itself is a reflection of survival strategies. Roof beams are often reinforced with whatever materials are available, and windows, if they exist at all, are covered with oiled cloth or animal hide to reduce drafts. Fires must be constantly tended, with smoke diverted as best as possible to maintain a livable atmosphere. The cold is relentless, and families develop strict routines to manage their environment, conserving fuel, moving livestock strategically, and maintaining small pockets of warmth. In this frozen world, the very walls meant to protect can just as easily become the agents of suffering, making survival a daily act of endurance, ingenuity, and vigilance. Winter in the medieval village is not only a battle against cold and hunger, it is also a battle against invisible enemies, disease and infection. In these cramped, damp homes, sickness spreads quickly. Dysentery and other gastrointestinal illnesses strike first, fueled by malnutrition and poor sanitation. Frostbite weakens the body, leaving even minor infections to fester. Respiratory diseases such as pneumonia and bronchitis thrive in the cold, stagnant air of the huts, claiming lives that might have survived in warmer months. Children and the elderly are particularly vulnerable, their weaker immune systems unable to withstand the compounded effects of cold, hunger, and illness. Famine intensifies these dangers. When the Great Famine strikes, the already sparse diet becomes even more inadequate, and families grow weaker by the day. Historical chronicles recount horrifying cases where desperation drives villagers to consume those who have died, turning the struggle for survival into a grim moral and biological reality. Disease does not strike evenly. Outbreaks sweep through communities in waves, leaving some households untouched while others are decimated. Each cough, fever, or swelling could be the beginning of the end, yet life must continue despite the constant presence of death. Survival often depends on knowledge passed quietly from one generation to another. Villagers use rudimentary remedies, herbs, poultices, and steaming water to treat infections and colds, but these measures are rarely sufficient. The cold slows healing, the damp weakens the body, and the lack of proper nutrition ensures that even minor wounds become serious. Mortality is a constant shadow in every household, shaping behavior and instilling fear in both children and adults. Winter is a merciless teacher, and in its harsh classroom, only the resourceful, strong, and sometimes lucky survive. The threat of death permeates every action. Families must ration food carefully, maintain the fire constantly, and protect themselves against frostbite while simultaneously attempting to prevent disease. In this world, a single mistake, dropping a log into the snow, eating spoiled food, or failing to tend the fire can trigger a chain reaction ending in illness or death. Survival is never guaranteed, and the cold months serve as a harsh reminder of the fragility of life in medieval Europe. Life in a medieval village is governed not only by the harshness of winter, but also by rigid social rules enforced by the local lord. Every resource, wood, game, and even water in some areas, belongs to someone of higher authority. Gathering firewood from the forest without permission is considered theft, punishable by severe penalties, including mutilation, fines, or public humiliation. Even hunting small animals or foraging for roots carries the risk of imprisonment. Survival, therefore, is constantly constrained by laws that prioritize property over human life. Villagers must navigate this perilous social landscape with caution. Alliances between neighbors become vital. Sharing firewood, food, or livestock is often done discreetly to avoid attracting the attention of enforcers. Some villagers risk everything to break these rules, stealing small amounts of wood at night or foraging in hidden corners of the forest. These clandestine acts are a gamble. Caught, they could lose hands or worse, but not acting often means freezing to death. Social rules turn basic survival into a complex game of secrecy, cunning, and courage. Winter is no longer just a test of physical endurance, it is also a test of social acumen and the ability to navigate a world where law and necessity are constantly in conflict. Survival during a medieval winter required constant ingenuity and careful planning. Villagers developed strategies to stretch every resource and endure the months when frost and snow made life almost unbearable. Livestock, brought indoors at night, served as both heat sources and food reserves. Families learned to huddle together strategically, sharing warmth while minimizing fuel consumption. Blankets and clothing were layered and patched repeatedly, creating fragile insulation against the penetrating cold. Food rationing was a matter of life and death. Each household carefully measured portions from the eternal pot of gray gruel, ensuring that children and the sick received priority. Roots, grains, and preserved vegetables were stored in earthen cellars, often buried beneath straw to prevent freezing. Villagers would trade scraps, barter for small amounts of meat, or exchange favors to secure necessary ingredients. Improvisation was constant. A small bundle of hay might serve as bedding, insulation, or fodder for animals. Communal cooperation also played a crucial role. Neighbors pooled resources, shared firewood, and helped tend to each other's livestock when illness or injury struck. Knowledge of herbs and rudimentary medicine was passed quietly between households, offering limited protection against sickness. Villagers experimented with steaming, poultices, and herbal remedies, knowing that these measures could sometimes mean the difference between life and death. Daily routines were optimized for survival. Tasks were scheduled to avoid wasting energy, food was carefully preserved, and fires were tended with almost religious attention. Any lapse, a fire left to die, water frozen in the pot, or an unnoticed frostbite could cascade into disaster. In this world, intelligence, planning, and communal effort were as essential as warmth and nutrition. Survival was not accidental. It was the product of careful calculation, cooperation, and relentless vigilance.
As winter drags on, the harsh realities of medieval life become impossible to ignore. 1 in 10 villagers will not survive. Children are particularly vulnerable, and even adults face constant threats from cold, hunger, and disease. Every decision, how to ration food, when to tend the fire, how to navigate feudal restrictions, carries weight far beyond what modern people can imagine. The brutal interplay of environment, social hierarchy, and scarcity shaped life and death, turning each winter into a merciless test of endurance. Looking back, it becomes clear that medieval winter was more than a season. It was a mechanism of survival, an invisible force that eliminated the weak and punished any miscalculation. Mortality rates, historical records of famine, and archaeological evidence reveal a world where life was fragile, fleeting, and constantly negotiated against the cold and deprivation. Even small successes, keeping a child warm through the night, preserving a few days of grain, or maintaining the fire, were victories against almost certain despair. For modern viewers, the contrast is stark. Today, warmth, food, and medicine are available with ease, yet in the 14th century, the very absence of these necessities was deadly. Reflecting on this past, one must ask, which would have claimed you first? Freezing temperatures, gnawing hunger, or the invisible threat of disease? Understanding these harsh realities does more than educate. It forces us to appreciate the fragility of life in a world without modern conveniences, and reminds us of the resilience and ingenuity required just to survive. Medieval winters were not merely cold. They were a systematic, unrelenting challenge, testing every human instinct and skill to its limit. If you found this journey through the brutal winters of medieval Europe eye-opening, subscribe to Dark Medieval for more historical investigations that reveal the harsh truths behind romanticized periods. Share your thoughts in the comments. How long do you think you could survive in a world without heat, medicine, or reliable food? And don't forget to share this video with others who want to see history as it really was, unflinching and unfiltered.